There we go. Not too loud. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Ashtotter the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Ashtotter the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Amoga Lila. Can you make sure the fans are on? And also see if there's something open upstairs so the air can come through from down there. Oh boy. Definitely tell the difference. In sound, anyway. Oh. Can you grab that book? It shouldn't belong up there. It's there since this morning. Thank you. Just hold on to it or whatever. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 20th day of October, 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 16, the Divine and Demoniac Natures, text number 9, on page 626. 626. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano alpabuddhayah prabhavanti ugrakarmana chayaya Jagato ahita etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmanolpabudhnayah prabhavantyugra karmana Chayaya jagato hitaha. Etam drishtim avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagato hitaha. Etam drishtim avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagito hitaha. Amoga. Etam drishtim avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagito hitaha. Go ahead. Etam drishtim avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagato hitaha. Etam drishtim avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagito hitaha. You want to try it, Prabhu? Etam drishtam avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagito hitaha. Jesse, you want to try? Etam drishtam avashtabhya. Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha. Pabhavantyugra karmana. Chayaya jagato hitaha. Chayaya jagato hitaha. Zoomland.
Etam drishtim avashtabhya.
Etam drishtim avashtabhya.
Nastatmano lupa buddhayaha.
Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha.
Prabhavanti ugra karmana.
Pabhavantyugra karmana.
Shayaya jagato hita.
Chayaya jagito hita. Anyone else?
Etam drishtim avashtabhya.
Etam drishtim avashtabhya.
Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha.
Nastatmanolpabuddhayaha.
Prabhavantyugra karmana.
Pabhavantyugra karmana.
Chayaya jagato hitaha.
Chayaya jagito hitaha. Etam, this drishtim, vision, avashtabhya, accepting nashta, having lost, atmanaha, themselves, alpabuddhayaha, the less intelligent, prabhavanti, flourish, ugra karmanaha, engaged in painful activities, chayaya, for destruction, jagataha, of the world, ahitaha, unbeneficial. Translation, Lord Krishna says, following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Purport. The demoniac are engaged in activities that will lead the world to destruction. The Lord states here that they are less intelligent. The materialists who have no concept of God think that they are advancing, but according to the Bhagavad Gita, they are unintelligent and devoid of all sense. They try to enjoy this material world to the utmost limit and therefore always engage in inventing something for sense gratification. Such materialistic inventions are considered to be advancement of human civilization, but the result is that people grow more and more violent and more cruel to animals and cruel to other human beings. They have no idea how to behave toward one another. Animal killing is very prominent amongst demoniac people. Such people are considered the enemies of the world because ultimately they will invent or create something which will bring destruction to all. Indirectly, this verse anticipates the invention of nuclear weapons. of which the whole world is today very proud. At any moment, war may take place, and these atomic weapons may create havoc. Such things are created solely for the destruction of the world, and this is indicated here. Due to godlessness, such weapons are invented in human society. They are not meant for the peace and prosperity of the world. Om Jnana Timbarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. What is that? I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit stressed out that I was in a big marathon today. Okay. So, etam drishtim. Now, which is the vision? That's in the previous verse. So they say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. So this is the demoniac vision. And really, it's a conclusion that they come to in order to open up the field for sense gratification. In other words, the demoniac, the real essence, nice to see you, Boo, of the quality is that they close off the voice of the supersoul, conscience, to such a degree that they can become sociopathic or psychopathic, meaning devoid of any empathy or kindness. Even sometimes they'll, they won't show any love even to their own children. I remember hearing many years ago when the cocaine began to become prominent in America. Some of you are too young to remember that. Early 80s, mid 80s, I think. And you kept hearing these stories where people would get, mothers, on welfare or whatever, just single mothers, would get addicted, and they just neglect their children. They wouldn't, they'd lose the kind of the instinctual love and care that a mother has for a child, which is essentially, obviously, for society to continue. So I realize how destructive a drug that could be, and all the drugs. The drug addiction and any kind of addiction like that is very self-centered, and it's in the mode of ignorance, and it destroys the finer human qualities. But in a society where you have more and more people who are embracing the qualities that we're going to read about here, especially the last verse, there's no ultimate truth. I mean, talk about a society where the truth is just basically disregarded and thrown down and seen as something as a weapon. The lies are a weapon that they can use in order to gain some political advantage. It's incredible. And even you find this pandemic, there's so much misinformation, disinformation going on, which creates tremendous anxiety in people. What should I do? What should I not do? So this destruction of truth, both on what to speak of the absolute truth, but even just material truth, is a tremendously destructive element in society. Because if people can't even be, sure of material facts and things, and then what are they going to rely on? Like sometimes we forget how much faith has to do with our everyday life. This will come out later in the next chapter. At the end of this chapter, Krishna will describe those who are the latter part of this chapter. As we continue, he's describing those who are in the lower modes of nature. And then in the 17th chapter, Arjuna asks a question that is related to the end of the 16th chapter. And that is that if people don't have faith in the Shastra, then what is their mode of nature? What do they regard as authority? And then Krishna describes different things in different modes of nature. Foods, people in the mode of ignorance like such foods, mode of passion like such foods, like that. Work, charity, all these different things. There are different modes for everything. So when the demoniac nature generally means more and more being controlled by the lower modes of nature. And Krishna keeps talking about this. Etam drishtim, their vision, not just physical vision, but their vision of who they are, what the world is, what other human beings are, living beings. He mentions here these activities that are ugra karma and are simply meant for the destruction of the world. Ahita. Hita means beneficial or benefit, and ahita means just the opposite. So when you get a society that's being controlled by more or less animalistic people, then it's a tremendous danger that you'll get, mass wars. Prabhupada talks about that here. I remember growing up, and I grew up in the 50s after World War II, and a huge, part of the consciousness was that these atom bombs were out there. I would have nightmares sometimes. The atom bombs are blowing up, and they'd make movies. I remember this one movie, On the Beach, which is about what happens after the war, after a nuclear war. It was set in Australia, and it was like the whole place was doomed because the nuclear fallout was coming. Eventually, it would kill everyone, And it was just that was a reality. It was like the Russians, the Soviet Union, and the Americans. They both had all these weapons, and China gradually gave them. So after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was this big sigh of relief, thinking, now maybe the Cold War will be over, and this threat of nuclear weapons will. But no, not really. Not really. It's just as dangerous now, if not more, than it's ever been. And so how does this come about? By this demoniac influence. When the demons are running things, then there's a great danger everywhere, and there cannot be happiness in society. So this is what this description here, and we get more in the Srimad Bhagavatam, more details. The Vaishnavas, they see this as a mission. They're giving them a mission to try to save the earth. If you recall, how does the Bhagavatam come about? You remember the sages in Naimisharanya? They were a good part of it. They were hearing from Sutta Goswami, who was there when Shukadev first spoke the Bhagavatam to King Pariksit. And it's inconceivable. We have, if we can memorize 2 verses in a day, that's like a great victory, right? What to speak of, chanting them. But he memorized the entire thing just by hearing it. You can imagine the clarity of mind, the peace that can do that. So why were these sages in Naimisharanya performing this sacrifice? Because they were on the cusp of Kali Yuga, and they could see with their mystic vision how the degradation was going to take place. So out of great compassion, they wanted to hear the Bhagavatam and understand what they could do in order to benefit the people and somehow hold back, or counteract the influence of the age, which is nothing but the modes of nature and the demons taking over. So that kind of missionary spirit carries forward for any genuine Vaishnava. Not just Gaudiya Vaishnavas. You see all, Brahmanuja and Madhvacharya. They all had this idea of spreading Vaishnavism for the general benefit of the people. That's what these foundations of all these temples are. The great devotees, they can sit under a tree and chant Hare Krishna, and be perfectly situated. But as Prahlad perfectly showed, he didn't want to do that. He felt that, there are some transcendentalists who just for their own elevation, they'll go off in seclusion and try to transcend and get liberation their own. But he calls that a kind of lust. Prayena deva munayo svavamukti kama. Svavamukti, my own mukti, kama. Really wanting my own mukti, my own liberation from birth and death. But that's not Vaishnav. He says, as for me, naitan vihaya kripana, I'm not going to abandon these wretches who are simply looking for flickering sense gratification and who are building a society that we see today. The only solution he sees is to give them Krishna consciousness. He says to Nrsingadev, he said, there's no one else but you who can save them, so I have to be an agent to give them you. That basically is saying like that. And that's the motivation of all the preachers in the line, especially coming from Lord Chaitanya. God himself took up the roles, touring South India, converting so many people, inspiring Rupa and Sanatana and the others to write books for the future, found temples, all of these different things. This is for the benefit of the world. So we're benefiting from Prabhupada's effort, obviously, and those who came before him. And we have a mission ourselves, twofold, as Lord Chaitanya showed, to become well-versed and experienced and advanced in Krishna consciousness, and to give it to others, give others a chance to counteract the influence of this very dangerous age of Kali. So, and Prabhupada is, this could come right, it's as pertinent today as it was when Prabhupada wrote it 50 years ago or more. They try to enjoy the material world to the utmost limit and therefore always engage in inventing something for sense gratification. Isn't that what we're seeing all around? Somehow, if we can get this new device that will enable us, like I remember when the what is it called, virtual reality, it was so cogent. I mean, I remember I was working with Sariputta Prabhu at that time, and he pointed out something that was like revelatory. Like this whole, what we think is normal consciousness is like a virtual reality, isn't it? It's exactly like that. We're looking through this machine, the brain and the senses and things, but we're getting a very distorted view of reality. We're in the dream world. We're in the reflection. We begin last chapter. Remember the upside down banyan tree? It's all just a phantasmagoria. Prabhupada used that word all the time. It means that something's very fascinating and involving of the senses, but it's ultimately not what it looks like. That's what it seems. It's not that it doesn't exist. It exists, but it's not what we think it is. Just like this body, it certainly exists, but it's not what we think it is, namely ourself. The body is a machine. It's an incredibly complicated and wonderfully constructed machine to give us a way of interacting, a spirit interacting with material world in a very complex way, with a special human brain. But the human life has a special mission because of that special brain and intelligence. And that is, we can actually ask the ultimate questions. And if we ask them from the right source, we'll get the right answers. This Bhagavad Gita, you remember the 5 topics? Who can name some of them? That 5, you know them all. Ishwar. Yeah, Kala's one, that's time. I'm sorry? Yeah, no, that's another list. Yeah, Prakriti or nature. So Ishvara, the Lord, the Jiva, the individual soul, nature or Prakriti, Kala, time, and karma, activity. Now, you remember there's a nice division of devotional Vaishnava knowledge and development. There's Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. You may be familiar with that. This Sambandha is what is comprised within these 5, really. Who is God? Where did it all come from? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. As human beings, to be human beings, we need to ask this question. What's the ultimate truth? Where did everything come from? The modern education systematically destroys that by say, yeah, we got it all figured out. It all arose from matter. There's a big bang and everything that. And you study science and you'll get, But that's like you're studying the car. How does the car run? How does it go? And you're just looking to open the hood and figure out that you're forgetting about the driver. There's got to be a driver in there. You notice how these driverless cars are always having accidents and everything? It's like they really don't have that together, because there's still somebody behind it who figured out the algorithm and everything. But it's so many random things happen on the road. There's all human beings on the road in those cars, and they see a driverless car, they'll freak out, they'll go off the road, or they'll stop. You know what I mean? In other words, it's not rational. It's a dukkaushadam tadapi dukkam. It's a remedy for a misery that produces more misery, without actually understanding how things are working and that there's a person behind everything. So we're being given the chance to get answers to the most important questions. First, as Sanatana Goswami, I think, said, I don't even know the proper questions to answer, so you're going to have to coach me on that when he met Lord Chaitanya. So at first, well, you have to, this is a question you have to ask, if you're a human being. But not only they provide the right questions, but they give the ultimate answers, without which you can never be successful in human life. And the chances are you lose it, which is a great tragedy. And you have to come back as an animal and come back up, So this is a very sobering chapter. From here on in, we're going to see what are the results, what are the qualities of the demons, and what are the results of their activities. And it's not auspicious, All right, if there's any questions on these points, we can...
Hare Krishna.
Hold on, we have a local one here. Dimitri
Yes,
Prabhu.
I can wait.
Okay, Prabhu, go ahead.
So, it's loud. Anyway, because avatars appear on this in this material world on schedule, and they meant to kill the miscreants and save the devotees. Does that mean that no matter what advancement these people make in terms of making nuclear
material
weapons, it's still going to be kind of like stopped by the Lord, he won't let it happen, and because people are if they use the nuclear weapons, they're going to destroy massively the population, and it's going to affect even our planet. So does that mean that Krishna is in control of that, or we still have a free will too?
Well, there's always an element of free will, but at a certain point, if you're falling out of the plane, your karma's kind of settled. You have free will of whether to go this way, that way. Your free will is pretty well over at that point. It's got you already. So we can't figure out exactly how things are going to play out. I mean, what we do have is some definite control over our own way in which we're going to react to everything. In other words, if we develop our Krishna consciousness, then hopefully, no matter what happens, and every one of us will die eventually. So it may not be a mass death, but everyone dies individually, really. Then at that moment, we'll be ready, hopefully, to think of Krishna and successfully, lead this life. But in terms of all of society, it's impossible to see. I mean, right now it looks pretty bleak. It's hard to imagine how the leaders of this world at this time are really going to get together to sacrifice enough and to work together to counteract what's obviously happening with climate change. They're just pouring out these fossil fuels, and it's just getting worse and worse, and you can see it. You don't have to predict. You can see the extremes in weather. I've been here for over 30 years. Jesse, you've been here for a long time. Have you noticed the difference in the climate? I have. Yeah. I mean, it's warmer at certain times. It used to be cooler. I remember there used to be so many birds that come in the season. You hardly hear it anymore. They're not coming anymore. They're gone, And so the effects of all of this demonic activity are already taking place. All we can do is try to be ready on a personal level and be as Krishna conscious as possible, and learn the science of Krishna consciousness. Try to give it as much as possible to others, and if we have a chance to influence people who are leaders of society, which sometimes comes, and we should take that certainly. But we have to soberly look at the influences that are at play today. And at this time, in this world, the demons are ascendant, more or less. We can see that in every country. And so, as you say, we have to have faith in the holy name and faith that, Krishna will, but we don't know how that will take place exactly. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see, a way clear of this, but there's so many things we can't see. So we can practice and pray and do our best to give Krishna consciousness and teach Krishna consciousness, and then it's all in the Lord's hands.
And just one technical question. When an avatar appears in this material world, is he kind of like expanded to all the planets at the same time?
All the planets?
Like all the, all the material planets?
No, like, for instance, when Krishna comes down, he comes, he's got this whole roadshow kind of thing going on. Because there's all these universes, and he's appearing, right now he's appearing as Janmashtami somewhere. They're just celebrating. In fact, oftentimes Prabhupada would say, if you're successful in Krishna consciousness, and you want to serve Krishna in a certain way, in rasa, then you go to the planet where Krishna is appearing in some universe, and you're a contemporary, and you're further educated in that particular service, and then you go back to the loka. So, as far as the different Leela avatars appearing, they appear in one universe. I mean, this particular universe. When we hear about Matsya and Varaha, that's all appearances in this particular universe, But in the other universes, they could be appearing just like Krishna does, one after another. There's a certain schedule. All right. Let's. Any other questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh yes, go ahead, Prabhu.
Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. The quote from the translation is, quote, "who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence," end quote. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, "such people are considered the enemies of the world because ultimately they will invent or create something which will bring destruction to all," end quote. So, Prabhu, my question is, if the demon is very expert in relation to sense gratification, how do you explain that he is capable simultaneously of creating something that will destroy him?
Because their so-called expertise that you mentioned is just a self-delusion, really. You're expert in it for a certain limited time and for a certain limited place. Just like all of this electronics, computers, and things like that. There's a downside to it. They're seeing that, for instance, everyone's got a phone, and the what is it, Instagram, some of these things which I'm not on, but it's creating a lot of mental illness and anxiety in young girls growing up, and because now they have these apps that you can edit your image, So you see on there all these other 14-year-olds, they're perfect, and I'm not so perfect. That's always going on, whether you have the electronics. But now it's expanded and it's exaggerated, causing an epidemic of anxiety and all kinds of mental problems. And as far as the Facebook, they've got algorithms there. If they can get you angry, then you're likely to hit more and get more on the hit. So they try to so that things will be on your feed that will agitate you, And so everybody's getting agitated and angry, and oftentimes it's about something that's completely fictitious. Doesn't matter. For you, it's real. It's on my screen. I saw it on the internet. So all of the brain power they put into that. This is a subtle level. What to speak of the weapons? Oh my God! We don't even know one fraction of the things that they've invented. They keep them secret, and it's just and the unintentional things, plastics. We've all got plastic in our body. It's raining down from the sky, microplastics. Plastics everywhere. In the ocean, there's an island of plastic twice as big as Texas out there in the Pacific Ocean. In other words, this is a perfect example of that verse I always quote, Dukkha aushadam tadapi dukkha matadhyaham, that Prahlad Maharaj is saying that this world, he says, I'm burning in a fire of anxiety, my Lord. He's taking the role of a conditioned soul, Caused by what? The things that are so dear to us are ripped away, either right away or slowly, Our health, our youth, our loved ones, our body, these things are taken away. And the things which are abhorrent to us are forced upon us. These floods they had in New York City, my God, it just, by the subways, people drowning in their basement apartments. I mean, extreme weather, going on fires on this side of the country and floods on the other side of the country. So this is the nature of the material world. And it's all caused by sinful activity, directly. Extreme, investment in building up huge companies, fossil fuels, oil companies. They knew 30 years ago, ExxonMobil, that the climate change was going to come because of their activity, right? You know that? And what was their response? Well, we got to create a whole thing of counter propaganda so people don't believe it. They would pay, professors to write papers and things to muddy the waters, just like the tobacco companies did. So this is demonic. Instead of stopping the activity or working to counteract the harm that they've done, they said, well, how can we continue to make the billions and avoid the backlash of the people so that they would? That's demoniac. So that's what's being described here. And you wanted to know, ultimately, they will invent something which will bring a destruction to all. So the destruction to all it's obviously out there. It's possible, and we're going to need as much kirtan and correct divine intervention for it to not happen and to something else to go on. We don't know. Just like no one knew about this COVID. No one who thought it was going to happen. Anyway. The last administration, before this one, before the other guy, was Barack Obama. And they had all kinds of plans. They had planned for the pandemic. They had created something. But the last president, his main mission as his presidency was to do everything, to negate everything that the previous president had done. So he said, here's a multi-million-dollar organization in the government, with doctors and scientists to be on the ready if a pandemic comes, we'll count. And he dissolved the whole thing. Just out of, like 8th grade spite. Oh, you like it? Then I hate it. Insane. But there he was, the most powerful man in the world. I mean, anyway, we have to keep praying, Vijay. That's the only answer.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, we're going to go on. Kamam ashritya duspuram dambama namadanvita mohad guhit basad grahan pravartante ashuchivataha. Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. Purport: the demoniac mentality is described here. The demons have no satiation for their lust. They will go on increasing and increasing their insatiable desires for material enjoyment. Although they are always full of anxieties on account of accepting non-permanent things, they still continue to engage in such activities out of illusion. They have no knowledge and cannot tell that they are heading the wrong way. Accepting non-permanent things, such demoniac people create their own God. Quote, their own God. Create their own hymns and chant accordingly. The result is that they become more and more attracted to two things: sex enjoyment and accumulation of material wealth. The word ashuchivataha, unclean vows, is very significant in this connection. Such demoniac people are only attracted by wine, women, gambling, and meat eating. Those are their ashuchi, unclean habits. Induced by pride and false prestige, they create some principles of religion which are not approved by the Vedic injunctions. Although such demoniac people are most abominable in the world, by artificial means the world creates a false honor for them. Although they are gliding toward hell, they consider themselves very much advanced. I mean, does it sound like current events or what? It's just taken from the headlines. So again, you see the word damba? I emphasized this last time. That was the first quality of the demon. Dambo darpo bimanascha. So damba probably always has a pride, and it's the false pride, which comes from wanting to look religious, to look like you're a good person, because this is very advantageous. If you look like you're, and then so this is cheating, deceit, which is inherent in all of these demons. They try to look like something they're not. They try to be, and in this way, fool people into becoming loyal followers or whatever, And kama mashrita duspuram. So this is mentioned in the third chapter. Third chapter is what is that causes us to act in such ways that we may even know intellectually are bad for us. Arjuna asked this question. Atakena payukto ham papam charadi purusha anichanna vivarshnaya baladi vinayojita. What is it that forces us to act that in such a way that we even know is bad for us, but we still do it? And Krishna says, kama, esha, krodha, esha, rajoguna, samudvaha. It's lust only, Arjun, that's born of the mode of passion and which often leads to wrath or uncontrollable anger. So this is the perfect description of the demons. When you surrender to it, when it is all you have, or these demonic desires, then you become kind of mad. You're working toward your self-destruction, but you can't control it. This is what got a hold of your intelligence. And so they've taken shelter of lust, dushpuram, which is never satisfied. Damba, manama, danvita, pride and false pride and hypocrisy, false prestige, absorbed in conceit. And when society has a preponderance of people like that, you can imagine how hellish it is. The devotees are, if you really absorb yourself in Krishna consciousness, you take it very seriously, you kind of live in a different world. You're not sucked in by it all, and you're not caused so much anxiety if you're protected by strong Krishna consciousness and association. Then you can, kind of see it for what it is and not get entangled in it. But people who don't have that, it's tremendously distressing. Where do we go for some shelter? When the demons are controlling everything, and the land we live in is controlled by someone like that. It's a very dangerous situation. And so the result is they take shelter of entertainments, and they take shelter of drugs, and so forth like that. Yes, Prabhu. I'm not hearing you. Can you play it in the mic? I didn't mention his name. How do you know? We have to see through the eyes of Shastra.
Krishna Prabhu, could you please repeat the question? I don't think the microphone
It's not there's a reason why the microphone was on. Because I was referring to a recent leader of America. I didn't name any names, but it was obviously who I was talking about. And someone who's listening is upset by that. What to say? We have to see things clearly, and what a person is exhibiting the qualities that we're reading here on the page. Uncontrollable lust, and what about asatyam apatishtam te? What does asatyam mean, Prabhu? Asatyam, that was a few verses back. Asatyam apatishtam te. The text 8. Yeah, they say this world is real. It's unreal, with no foundation, no God control. But asatyam means with no truth. Yeah. Anyway, I can't get into individuals. I did refer, and because I thought it's kind of obvious, but I don't want to get into a political argument with anybody. But the thing is, we see the results of even whatever side you're on. There's a whole group of people who are saying just the opposite of what you believe. So somebody's lying. Whether it's your side or the other side, it's dangerous. But really, we have to see through the eyes of Shastra and see the results of the activity.
On that, if we look through Shastra, all political parties are not.
It's just a question of degree.
All political parties that I'm aware of are not exhibiting Vedic.
No, not at all. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
So whether it's this side or that side, or any side, almost in any nation. in my limited observation regarding like political parties and leaders, it appears that no one is exhibiting any God-conscious, Krishna-conscious, Vedic approach to leadership. It's really the exact opposite. What can they say? What can they do to control, to socially engineer society to work in a way that's to their advantage or to the advantage of individuals that are supporting them? And so, you know, whether somebody says Republican or Democrat or says this party or that party, it's kind of irrelevant, because the infection is across all parties, and this infection is of material reality where people are infected with the unreal.
Yeah.
They think the unreal is real, and that the ultimate reality, God, is unreal.
Yeah, it's just a question of degree. I'm not, you know, I didn't praise any of the politicians, certainly. But it's, what Prabhupada is describing in the purpose, what Krishna is describing in his words, is something that we can see happening all around us. And we can see the urgency of developing good qualities ourselves, of not being demonic, of being on the saintly side, developing these qualities at the beginning of the chapter, and working to inculcate them as far as possible into people in this society, so that people will have a chance to come to Krishna consciousness and be benefited. Okay, we have, let's see, what time is it? All right, we have 3 verses, but there's no purport, so we can read that. So this is Krishna now taking the role of a demon. He's speaking like a demon. Idamadhyamaya labdham imam prapsye manoratham idamasti idamapi me bhavishyati punardanam asalmaya hatak shatrur hanishye cha paranapi ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi arjo bijanavan asmi konyosti sadrisho maya yakshe dasyami modishya ityajnana vimohitaha. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifice, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Okay, so we'll pick up there in text 16 on Monday. I'm sorry? No, we just read 13 through 15. Oh, we skipped that? Oh, Chintam. I'm sorry, I turned the page. All right, let's read that one. Chintam apadimeyam cha pralayantam upashitaha kamopaboga padama etabaditi nishchitaha asha pashasatar bodha kama krodha padayana ihante kama bogartam anyayenartha sanchayan. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. Purport: the demoniac accept that the enjoyment of the senses is the ultimate goal of life, and this concept they maintain until death. They do not believe in life after death, and they do not believe that one takes on different types of bodies according to one's karma or activities in this world. Their plans for life are never finished, and they go on preparing plan after plan, all of which are never finished. We have personal experience of a person of such demoniac mentality who, even at the point of death, was requesting the physician to prolong his life for 4 years more because his plans were not yet complete. Such foolish people do not know that a physician cannot prolong life even for a moment. When the notice is there is no consideration of the man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what one is destined to enjoy. The demoniac person who has no faith in God or the supersoul within himself performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness sitting within his heart. The supersoul is observing the activities of the individual soul. As it is stated in the Upanishads, there are two birds sitting in one tree. One is acting and enjoying or suffering the fruits of the branches, and the other is witnessing. But one who is demoniac has no knowledge of Vedic scripture, nor has he any faith. Therefore he feels free to do anything for sense enjoyment, regardless of the consequences. Jai? Yes, sir. You had a question? Okay, real quick.
My question relates to, like, it says that here that we don't have, the pharmaceuticals can't extend our life.
Who is it?
The pharmaceuticals, or like people who help us.
People who take
right?
drug. Yeah.
And it said that we have basically an expiration date. So why do we, take medication, or why do we try to, have a better, healthier life? Why don't we just eat halva all day and just, like...
See, this is his plan. He wants to eat a halva all day. Because there are laws of nature. There are laws of nature. And we're enjoined to atyahara priyasascha. Krishna describes things that will destroy our bhakti, and overeating is one of them. We have minute independence, but we can control our lower self, our whims and impulses, by our developed intelligence. That's why it's so important to hear and to imbibe the knowledge. Then you can put it to good use, and then Krishna helps from within when he sees you're making an effort to follow. So it's not that the laws of nature are not real. They're real, and we want to obey them. Therefore, we hygiene and all these things, even taking pharmaceuticals, as you call them, when it arises. These are things you can look at. Oh, Krishna's provided this. Just as I remember Brahmastra juice. When I grew up in the ashram in New York, that was the cure for everything. Then you got the flu, take some Brahmastra juice. You got a sore foot, take some Brahmastra juice. It worked, but it's part of Ayurvedic medicine, and so there's a science to it. And we do it because the body should be healthy, so it's good. We can serve Krishna. That's the idea. Anyway, we have to stop. Did you have something, Manaji?
I have a question about pharmaceuticals, actually. Do you think that some of them are in the mode of darkness or ignorance?
Just some of them? I totally think that. Yeah, obviously. Yes, oftentimes it gives you a false sense of, you become entrapped by that, and you have to take something else to counteract what you took, and you get hung up that. And it's all because they can make more money. Demoniac. Not for the benefit of people. We're running out of time.
Just one last. It's like very short, but I think it's a purport in the 7th canto where Prabhupada says that the devotee knows that the Lord is ultimately in control, but he accepts, like remedial measures as a matter of routine. He still accepts that routine thing, but he understands that the Lord is ultimately in control.
Yeah. And that way, we do what we can, but don't think that that's only going to save us. Krishna's the real medicine. It's Krishna Katha. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.